I am Elena Jackson, and I have spent most of my 32 years talking to the dead. Tonight, as Baltimore's winter winds howl outside my cluttered apartment, something feels different. The candles flicker without cause, and the spirits whisper urgently of change is coming. The woman across from me clutches her husband's wedding ring, desperate for one last message. But the energy in the room shifts strangely. My usual connection wavers like a radio losing signal. The dead man's voice fades mid-sentence, replaced by something else entirely. Something that makes my blonde hair stand on end. "Your husband says to let him go," I whisper, though I heard nothing of the sort. The widow nods through her tears and pays me before disappearing into the snowy night. I blow out the candles and stare at my green eyes in the darkened window's reflection. 20 years of communing with spirits, and tonight I felt more lost than ever. Across town, Christina Bailey loads the last case of imported truffles into her refrigerated van. At 29, she has built Baltimore's most exclusive gourmet food supply business, but success tastes hollow when eaten alone. Through the restaurant's frost-covered windows, she watches couples share intimate meals prepared with her carefully sourced ingredients. Her brunette hair catches the streetlight as she locks her van, blue eyes avoiding her reflection in the chrome. Tomorrow brings another day of delivering luxury to others, while her own life remains as barren as winter branches. She drives home through empty streets, the heater fighting against the cold that seems to penetrate deeper than skin. Morning arrives gray and bitter. I need clarity, so I drive to Greenspring Valley Riding Club, where the horses understand silence better than most humans. The stable's warmth embraces me as I saddle Thunder, an aging gelding who tolerates my amateur riding. Snow crunches under hooves as we venture into the arena. That's when I see her. A brunette woman guides a magnificent chestnut mare through complex maneuvers with effortless grace. Her blue eyes focus intensely on her mount, completely absorbed in their dance. Every movement flows like water, rider, and horse in perfect harmony. My breath catches not from the cold, but from witnessing something beautiful in a world that feels increasingly disconnected. Christina Bailey, though I don't know her name yet, controls her horse with subtle shifts that speak of years spent in saddles. The mare responds to invisible cues, their partnership built on trust rather than dominance. When she notices me watching, her cheeks flush pink against the winter air. "Beautiful morning for a ride," she calls out, her voice carrying across the arena like a warm melody. "Perfect for clearing the mind," I reply, guiding Thunder closer. Something about her presence steadies the chaotic energy that has plagued me since yesterday's séance. We ride in companionable silence, two strangers finding unexpected peace in each other's company. The morning sun breaks through clouds, casting golden light across the snow-covered fields. Neither of us realizes that this moment will change everything, that the spirits whispering in my ear yesterday were announcing her arrival. Fear ripples through the arena as Christina's mare suddenly rears, spooked by something only she can sense. Most riders would panic, but Christina remains centered, her voice low and soothing as she brings the animal back to earth. I watch mesmerized as she dismounts gracefully and checks her horse for injury with practiced hands. "She's never done that before," Christina murmurs, running her fingers along the mare's neck. Something spooked her badly. I guide Thunder closer, my psychic senses prickling with recognition. The same chaotic energy that disrupted last night's séance hangs in the air around us. "Animals sense things we can't," I say carefully. "Your mare has good instincts." Christina looks up at me with those striking blue eyes, curiosity replacing concern. "You sound like you know something about that." "I'm Elena Jackson. I work with energies most people prefer to ignore." Her eyebrows raise slightly. "Christina Bailey. I work with food, which is definitely more tangible than energy." A smile tugs at her lips, though I suppose both involve nourishing people in different ways. There's something magnetic about her presence, a groundedness that my scattered soul craves. When she suggests coffee at the club's cafe, I accept without hesitation. The riding club's cafe overlooks the snowy paddocks where horses move like dark brushstrokes against white canvas. Christina wraps her hands around her coffee mug, and I notice how her fingers move with the same precision she showed on horseback. "So, what kind of energies do you work with?" she asks, leaning forward with genuine interest rather than the skepticism I usually encounter. I help people communicate with loved ones who have passed, I say, watching for the inevitable discomfort. Instead, Christina's expression softens. My grandmother always claimed she could sense spirits in her kitchen, she says quietly, said they guided her recipes. She pauses, studying my face. You lost someone important recently. The observation hits like a physical blow. How could you possibly know that? The same way you know my mare sensed something unusual today. Christina reaches across the table, her fingertips brushing mine. We all have gifts, Elena. Some people just choose to use them professionally. The contact sends warmth racing up my arm. But more than that, it quiets the restless energy that has plagued me for days. For the first time since my abilities began failing, I feel centered. Tell me about your work, I whisper, suddenly hungry to know everything about this remarkable woman. Christina describes her business with passion that transforms her entire demeanor. She sources rare ingredients from around the world, matching perfect components to create extraordinary dining experiences. As she talks, I glimpse the artist beneath the businesswoman. Food connects people, she explains, her eyes lighting up. A perfectly ripe peach can transport someone to their childhood. The right spice blend can awaken memories they thought were lost forever. Like the way spirits connect us to our past, I murmur, understanding her more deeply than she realizes. Our conversation flows effortlessly from profound to playful. When she mentions her grandmother's mysterious recipes, I offer to do a reading to see if her grandmother's spirit has messages to share. Christina accepts with touching hope. 2 days later, she arrives at my apartment carrying a basket that fills the space with incredible aromas. While she unpacks delicate pastries and exotic fruits, I prepare my cards on the small table by the window. Nervous? I ask as she settles across from me. Excited, she admits, her blue eyes bright with anticipation. I shuffle the cards, but before I can begin the formal reading, her grandmother's presence fills the room so strongly that tears spring to my eyes. She's here, I whisper. She wants you to know the lavender cookies were always meant for you. Christina gasps, her hand flying to her throat. She made those every Christmas. I haven't had them since she died 8 years ago. The reading continues with intimate details only Christina's grandmother could know, but it's the way Christina looks at me that steals my breath. Wonder and something deeper shine in her eyes as she realizes the gift I've given her. When I finish, she reaches across the table and takes my hands in both of hers. Thank you, she whispers. I've missed her so much. The moment hangs between us, charged with possibility. Then Christina leans forward and presses her lips softly to mine. The kiss tastes of hope and lavender, of connections that transcend the physical world. When we part, her smile holds promises neither of us is ready to voice. The next week, Christina appears at my apartment door carrying a cloth bag that smells like heaven itself. I thought you might be hungry, she says, her blue eyes twinkling with mischief. Inside, she unpacks ingredients I've never seen outside of cooking shows, shimmering saffron threads, black truffles that cost more than my monthly electric bill, and something she calls burrata that looks like clouds made edible. Where did you possibly find these in Baltimore? Trade secrets, she grins, moving around my tiny kitchen with surprising familiarity. Besides, I wanted to cook for someone who appreciates more than just the physical senses. I perch on a stool and watch her work, mesmerized by the careful precision of her movements. She handles each ingredient like a sacred offering, her brunette hair catching the afternoon light streaming through my windows. When she tastes the sauce and closes her eyes in obvious pleasure, my stomach flutters with something that has nothing to do with hunger. My grandmother taught me that cooking is another form of communication, Christina says, glancing up at me. The way you talk to spirits, I talk through flavors. And what are you trying to tell me? She pauses, her cheeks flushing pink. That I can't stop thinking about you. The honesty in her voice makes my heart race. I slide off the stool and move closer, close enough to smell her perfume mixing with the exotic spices. Good, I whisper, because I've been having the strangest dreams about a brunette chef who keeps feeding me impossible things. Her laugh is like music. Impossible things are my specialty. We eat at my small table as snow begins falling outside, And I tell her about my work beyond the seances. How sometimes I help police find missing persons, how I counsel people struggling with grief, how the spirits taught me that love transcends every boundary, including death itself. Do you ever get scared? She asks, twirling pasta around her fork. Every day. But fear is just another energy to work with. I reach across and touch her hand. What scares you, Christina? Letting someone see who I really am. Her fingers intertwine with mine. I've built this successful business, but underneath, I'm just a woman who talks to ingredients and wishes her grandmother was still here to taste my cooking. She tastes everything you make, I say softly. I can feel her presence whenever you're near. Christina's eyes fill with tears, but she's smiling. You have no idea what that means to me. The second time she visits, she brings her grandmother's handwritten recipe cards, yellowed with age and stained with decades of use. I spread them across my reading table like tarot cards, running my fingers over the faded ink. She wants you to try the honey cake, I murmur, sensing the elderly woman's spirit hovering nearby. She says you've been afraid to make it because you think you'll ruin the memory. Christina nods, wiping her eyes. It was her masterpiece. I've never been brave enough. Fear ruins more dreams than failure ever could. I gather the cards gently. She says the secret ingredient was never written down because it can't be measured. What is it? Joy. She cooked with pure joy, and that's what you're missing. 3 days later, Christina arrives with warm honey cake that tastes exactly like love should. We eat it slowly, savoring each bite and the way Christina's confidence has returned. When she kisses me this time, I taste sweetness and triumph mixed with desire that makes my knees weak. But it's the winter storm that changes everything between us. We're at the riding club when the weather turns violent, snow falling so thick we can barely see the barn from the stable door. The power flickers and dies, leaving us stranded in the warm darkness scented with hay and leather. Looks like we're spending the night, Christina says, her voice slightly breathless. I light the emergency lanterns stored in the tack room while she checks on the horses. The golden light creates an intimate cocoon around us as wind howls outside. When she returns, snowflakes glisten in her dark hair like tiny diamonds. Are you cold? I ask, though the question feels inadequate for everything I'm really wondering. Instead of answering, she steps closer until I can count her individual eyelashes in the lamplight. Elena, she whispers, I need you to know something. What? I've never felt this way about anyone before. Her hands frame my face gently. Man or woman, you've awakened something in me I didn't even know existed. My heart hammers against my ribs. Christina, She silences me with a kiss that starts soft, but quickly deepens into something urgent and hungry. I respond with equal fervor, my hands tangling in her hair as months of careful courtship dissolve into pure need. We sink onto the blankets I've spread over fresh hay, our bodies fitting together like puzzle pieces finally finding their match. In the golden lantern light, she explores my skin with reverent touches while I map the curves of her body with growing wonder. When she whispers my name like a prayer, I understand that this moment has been inevitable since that first morning we rode together in the snow. Later, wrapped in horse blankets with Christina's head on my shoulder, I listen to the storm rage outside while her breathing grows steady with sleep. The spirits whisper their approval in the darkness, telling me that some connections are written in the stars long before souls find their way to each other. The morning after the storm, Christina brings coffee to my apartment along with perfectly ripe strawberries that taste like summer promises. But it's the small touches that steal my breath. How she remembers I take my coffee black, how she cuts the strawberries into heart shapes, how she places them on my grandmother's china plate without being asked. I've been thinking, she says, settling beside me on the couch, about incorporating some of your favorite things into my client deliveries. My favorite things? She traces patterns on my palm with her fingertip. Lavender honey for the restaurant that reminds you of your childhood. Those little French macarons that make you close your eyes when you taste them. I want to share the things that bring you joy. The gesture touches me deeper than any grand romantic declaration could. Christina has been watching me, learning my preferences, caring about my happiness in ways that feel both intimate and profound. Over the following weeks, she begins weaving pieces of me into her business like a secret love letter only we can decode. When her clients rave about the unexpected flavor combinations, she calls to share their reactions with barely contained excitement. The chef at Blanc nearly cried over those cardamom pears. She laughs into the phone. He said they reminded him of his mother's garden in Morocco. You're giving people more than food, I tell her. You're creating memories. I learned from the best. 2 weeks later, Christina faces a crisis when her biggest client threatens to switch suppliers after a competitor offers lower prices. She paces my apartment, stress radiating from every line of her body as she explains how losing this account could devastate her business. Let me help, I offer, but she shakes her head. Elena, I can't ask you to use your abilities for my business problems. You're not asking, I'm offering. I take her hands in mine. The spirits see things we miss. Sometimes they know which path leads where. Her blue eyes search my face. Are you sure? Instead of answering, I pull out my cards. The reading reveals that her competitor has been spreading false rumors about Christina's reliability and shows me exactly which restaurant owner to contact with the truth. More importantly, it shows Christina that her integrity and quality will always triumph over cheaper alternatives if she stays true to her values. The next day, she calls with news that not only did she keep the account, but the client signed an exclusive contract after learning about the competitor's dishonest tactics. How did you know? She asks breathlessly. Sometimes the universe has opinions about good people being treated badly. That evening, she arrives at my door with champagne and tears in her eyes. I don't know how to thank you. Kiss me, I whisper against her ear, and she complies with enthusiasm that makes my knees weak. Our relationship deepens through quiet evenings at her apartment, where she introduces me to her world of imported delicacies, and I share stories of the spirits who visit me. Her kitchen becomes our sanctuary, filled with laughter and the intimate sounds of two people discovering each other's souls. Tell me about your first supernatural experience, she says one night as we prepare dinner together. I pause in chopping vegetables, memories flooding back. I was 7. My grandfather had just died, and I kept insisting he was still in the house. My parents thought I was having trouble accepting his death until I told them about the conversation he and I had about the hidden money in his bedroom wall. Christina stops stirring sauce to stare at me. Did they find it? $3,000 in cash, exactly where he said it would be. I smile at the memory. That's when my family realized I wasn't grieving strangely. I was talking to a ghost who wanted to help with their financial problems. Has it always been easy for you? Never easy, but purposeful. I move closer, drawn by the warmth in her eyes. Like this is... She sets down the spoon and frames my face with flour-dusted hands. Elena, I need you to know something. What? I'm falling in love with you. The words hit me like lightning, illuminating corners of my heart I'd forgotten existed. Instead of speaking, I kiss her with everything I feel but can't yet voice. She responds with equal passion, her body molding against mine as dinner forgotten on the stove. Later, tangled together in her bed while rain patters against the windows, she traces lazy patterns on my shoulder and whispers confessions that feel sacred in the darkness. How she's never trusted anyone enough to cook for them regularly. How my presence has made her apartment feel like home instead of just a place to sleep. How she dreams of building something lasting together. I want to know everything about you, she murmurs against my throat, and I understand she means more than just the supernatural aspects of my life. So I tell her about my failed attempt at normal jobs, how I tried working in an office until the accumulated psychic energy of hundreds of employees nearly drove me mad. About the night I decided to embrace my gifts professionally, even though it meant accepting a lifetime of skeptical looks and whispered comments. Do you ever regret it? She asks. Not anymore. I turn to face her in the moonlight streaming through her blinds. Meeting you makes every difficult choice worth it. She kisses me then with tender reverence that speaks of promises neither of us is ready to make out loud. But in the quiet intimacy of her bedroom, surrounded by the scent of her perfume and the lingering aromas of our shared meal, I finally understand what the spirits have been trying to tell me. Love isn't just about finding someone who accepts your gifts. It's about finding someone who sees them as blessings rather than burdens. The call comes on a Tuesday morning while I'm reading cards for a grieving widow. My lawyer's voice cuts through my concentration like a blade. Miss Jackson, I have news about your Aunt Miriam's estate. I excuse myself and step into the kitchen, leaving my client with her late husband's spirit still hovering nearby. I thought everything was settled. There's been a complication. Your aunt owned a metaphysical shop downtown that wasn't included in the original inventory. You've inherited it along with all outstanding debts and obligations. My hands shake as I write down the address. Miriam's mystical parlor sits between a tattoo shop and a pawnbroker on a street I've driven past 1,000 times without noticing. The building looks tired, its purple paint peeling and neon sign flickering weakly in the afternoon light. Inside, dust motes dance through shafts of sunlight that struggle through grimy windows. Crystals line every shelf, their faceted surfaces dulled by neglect. Tarot decks, incense burners, and ceramic figurines compete for space in the cramped quarters that smell of sandalwood and decay. A mountain of unpaid bills sits on the antique register. 3 months behind on rent, outstanding invoices from suppliers, a notice from the city about building code violations. My heart sinks as I calculate the debt at nearly $15,000. Damn, I whisper to the dusty silence. That evening, I spread the financial documents across Christina's pristine granite countertop while she prepares dinner. The numbers look even worse under her kitchen's bright lighting. This is a disaster, I mutter, rubbing my temples where a headache is building. Christina glances over from the stove where something incredible simmers. Maybe not. What was your aunt like? Eccentric. Brilliant. She taught me everything about communicating with spirits, but she had zero business sense. I gesture at the bills. This proves it. But people loved her work? She had a waiting list for readings that stretched months ahead. Christina turns off the burner and moves to study the papers beside me. Her proximity fills my senses with her familiar perfume mixed with cooking aromas that normally comfort me. Tonight, they can't penetrate my growing panic. Elena, she says carefully, have you considered that maybe you're not meant to save this place? I look up sharply. What do you mean? I mean, look at these numbers. She picks up the rent statement. This location is killing any chance of profit. The building needs major repairs. Even if you paid off every debt, you'd be starting from a hole so deep it might take years to climb out. Her practical assessment hits like cold water. So you think I should just abandon it? I think you should consider whether holding onto your aunt's failing business is worth destroying your own future. Christina's voice softens, but her words cut deep. Our future. The last 2 words hang between us like an accusation. I stand abruptly, needing distance from her reasonable logic that feels like betrayal. This isn't just about money, Christina. It's about honoring my aunt's legacy. She spent 40 years building relationships with the spirit world through that shop. And it nearly bankrupted her. Maybe some things are more important than profit margins. Christina's blue eyes flash with frustration. Easy to say when you're not the one watching someone you care about throw their life away on a romantic notion. Romantic notion? My voice rises dangerously. This is my family's history, my spiritual calling. Your calling is helping people, not maintaining a dusty shrine to the past. The words sting because they contain truth I'm not ready to face, but they also reveal something about Christina that chills me. For all her artistic soul and appreciation of my gifts, she still sees the world primarily through the lens of practical success. Maybe you don't understand me as well as I thought, I say quietly. Maybe you don't want to see reality clearly enough to make smart decisions. We stare at each other across her perfect kitchen, the distance between us suddenly feeling vast despite being only 3 feet apart. The dinner she prepared with such care grows cold on the stove, another casualty of our first serious fight. I need some air, I announce, grabbing my coat. Elena, wait. But I'm already walking toward the door, my heart racing with anger and hurt, and the terrible recognition that we've just crossed a line we can't uncross. Outside her apartment building, snow begins falling again, each flake a cold kiss against my burning cheeks. The next morning, I throw myself into cleaning the mystical shop with desperate energy. If Christina can't support my decision, I'll prove her wrong through sheer determination. I scrub decades of grime from windows and organize inventory with obsessive precision. But with each hour that passes, the reality of my situation becomes clearer. The building's wiring is dangerous. The heating system barely functions. The neighborhood has declined so much that foot traffic is nearly non-existent during business hours. My phone buzzes with a text from Christina. "Can we talk?" I delete it without responding and continue sorting through boxes of moth-eaten velvet and tarnished silver jewelry. When she calls an hour later, I let it go to voicemail. Her voice sounds tired and sad, but I'm too raw to listen to more practical advice about abandoning my family's legacy. By evening, I'm exhausted and covered in dust, but the shop looks marginally better. I sit among the crystals and close my eyes, reaching out for my aunt's spirit, desperate for guidance. Nothing comes. The silence feels like judgment. Christina doesn't call again that day, or the next. Her absence from my life creates a hollow ache that grows stronger with each passing hour. I catch myself checking my phone obsessively and have to resist driving past her apartment like some lovesick teenager. 3 days after our fight, I finally listen to her voicemail. "Elena, I know you're angry, and maybe I deserved some of what you said, but I need you to understand something. I'm not trying to crush your dreams. I'm trying to protect them, and you. There's a difference between honoring your aunt's memory and destroying yourself trying to fix something that was broken long before you inherited it. Please call me when you're ready to talk about solutions instead of just problems." Her words make my chest tight with conflicting emotions. Part of me wants to run to her apartment and apologize. Another part feels she's asking me to choose between her and my spiritual obligations. That night, alone in my apartment, I spread tarot cards on the kitchen table and ask the universe for clarity about my path forward. The cards remain stubbornly silent, as if even the spirits are waiting to see what choice I'll make. 2 weeks without Christina feels like suffocating slowly. I work 16-hour days at the mystical shop, replacing broken fixtures and painting walls until my hands crack from the chemicals. Physical exhaustion should make sleep easier, but instead I lie awake remembering how her laugh sounded in my kitchen, and the way she looked at me like I was miracle-made flesh. My psychic abilities have become unreliable since our fight. During readings, the spirits' voices fade mid-sentence, leaving my clients hanging in disappointed silence. Mrs. Henderson drives 20 miles for news from her deceased mother and gets nothing but my stammered apologies and a refunded fee. "I'm sorry," I tell her for the 3rd time as she gathers her purse. Sometimes the connection just isn't there. But I know the truth. Heartbreak has severed my spiritual antenna, leaving me as ordinary as everyone else. Without Christina's grounding presence, I'm lost in static. That night, I drive past her apartment building twice before forcing myself to go home. Her delivery van sits in its usual spot, and I imagine her upstairs preparing exotic ingredients for tomorrow's clients. Does she think about me while she works, or has she already moved on to someone more practical? The worst part is knowing she was right about the shop. Yesterday, I discovered water damage in the basement that will cost thousands to repair. The city inspector left a citation that could shut me down permanently if I don't bring the electrical system up to code by month's end. But admitting defeat feels like betraying every lesson Aunt Miriam taught me about honoring family obligations. Christina's world continues without me. I see her van at restaurants I used to avoid, delivering ingredients to chefs who praise her creativity in local food blogs. She's featured in Baltimore Magazine as one of the city's rising culinary entrepreneurs. Her photo showing her holding imported mushrooms with the same reverence I reserve for ancient tarot decks. The article mentions her innovative approach to ingredient selection and her mysterious ability to match perfect components with individual chefs' styles. They call her intuitive, which makes me laugh bitterly. If only they knew how intuitive she really was, or how she learned to trust her instincts through watching me work with energies beyond normal perception. 3 weeks into our separation, I spot her at the farmer's market where she sources local herbs. She stands at a vendor's table examining bundles of sage with the focused intensity I remember so well. Her brunette hair catches the morning sunlight, and for a moment, I forget to breathe. She must sense my presence because she turns, our eyes meeting across 20 feet of crowded market. The pain in her blue gaze nearly brings me to my knees. She looks thinner, tired lines around her eyes that weren't there before. We stare at each other for an eternal moment before someone bumps into me, breaking the spell. When I look back, she's gone. That afternoon brings news that my largest client, a grief counseling center that referred dozens of people monthly, has decided to recommend someone else. "We need readers we can depend on," the director explains gently. "Your recent cancellations have left too many people disappointed." I hang up and stare at the shop's dusty interior, finally understanding the full scope of my losses. Without Christina, I'm losing not just love, but everything that gave my life meaning. The spirits have abandoned me, my clients no longer trust me. Even my financial situation has become desperate as canceled appointments pile up. Maybe she was right. Maybe holding on to this failing business is destroying more than it preserves. On impulse, I drive to Greenspring Valley where we first met. The writing club feels haunted by our beginning, when everything seemed possible and love felt like the most natural thing in the world. I stand at the arena fence where I first watched her control that magnificent mare, remembering how her grace made me believe in magic that had nothing to do with supernatural abilities. Missing someone? I turn to find Jake, the stable manager, approaching with feed buckets. He's seen Christina and me here enough times to know what my presence means. More than I thought possible, I admit. He sets down the buckets and joins me at the fence. Pride's a funny thing. Makes people choose being right over being happy. What if there is no right choice? What if every path leads to losing something important? Then you figure out what you can't live without and fight for that. He glances at me sideways. That woman looked at you like you hung the moon. Don't see that every day. His words follow me home, where I sit surrounded by financial documents that chart my aunt's slow business decline over the past 5 years. The pattern is clear: fewer clients, mounting debts, desperate attempts to stay afloat that only accelerated the downward spiral. Maybe Christina saw what I couldn't. Maybe love means protecting someone from their own destructive loyalty. But even as I acknowledge her wisdom, I can't bring myself to call her. Too much pride stands between us now, built from harsh words and assumptions about what the other person values most. She thinks I chose duty over our relationship. I think she abandoned me when I needed support most. We're both probably right, which makes reconciliation feel impossible. That night, I dream of Christina cooking in a kitchen I don't recognize, her hands moving confidently as she prepares a meal for someone whose face I can't see. She looks happy in ways that make my chest ache with loss. When I wake, tears wet my pillow, and the taste of regret fills my mouth like ashes. Outside my window, Baltimore's winter morning arrives gray and unforgiving, promising another day of fighting battles I'm no longer sure are worth winning. While cleaning out Aunt Miriam's desk drawers, my fingers find a hidden compartment I'd somehow missed during weeks of sorting. Inside lies a bundle of letters tied with faded ribbon, the paper yellowed with age. My hands tremble as I recognize 2 different handwritings, both feminine and elegant. The first letter is dated 1947, addressed to my dearest Miriam. As I read, the truth unfolds like a flower blooming in reverse. My aunt had been deeply in love with a woman named Catherine, a nurse who worked at the local hospital. Their correspondence spans decades, filled with passionate declarations and carefully coded references to their hidden relationship. "I dream of the day we can live openly," Catherine writes in 1952, "when your mystical shop and my nursing career won't be threatened by people's ignorance about love like ours." But that day never came. The final letters, dated in the 1980s, reveal Catherine's decision to marry a doctor for social respectability. "I cannot sacrifice my career any longer," she writes tearfully. "Society demands choices, and I choose survival over truth. Please understand, my darling Miriam." Aunt Miriam's response is brief and devastating. "I understand. The shop will always be here if you change your mind. My love remains constant even as you choose convention." I sink into the dusty chair, tears blurring my vision, as I realize why Miriam never married, why she poured everything into this failing business instead of building a life with someone. She sacrificed love for duty, choosing to honor their relationship's memory over her own happiness. The parallel to my situation with Christina hits like lightning. I've been so determined not to abandon my legacy that I'm repeating my aunt's tragic mistake. Meanwhile, Christina's guilt manifests in ways that reach me even through our silence. The Grief Counseling Center mentions receiving anonymous donations of gourmet meals for their support groups. The Children's Hospital suddenly has access to special dietary accommodations for young patients that could only come from Christina's suppliers. Someone's been providing ingredients for our art therapy cooking classes, my former client Mrs. Henderson tells me, when she calls to apologize for seeking services elsewhere. The volunteer coordinator thinks it's a guardian angel, but the mushrooms have these little labels with your name on them. My chest tightens with recognition. Christina is channeling her unresolved feelings into acts of service that honor my work with grieving families. Even angry and hurt, she's still protecting the people I care about in the only way she can, without directly contacting me. The revelation breaks something loose in my heart. While I've been wallowing in self-righteous isolation, she's been quietly ensuring my former clients continue receiving support. Her practical love extends beyond our personal relationship to encompass everyone I've ever tried to help. I drive through Baltimore's winter streets, passing restaurants where her delivery van used to brighten my day with possibility. Now each familiar location feels like a memorial to opportunities I've wasted through stubborn pride. The Children's Hospital sits on a hill overlooking the harbor, its windows glowing against the gray afternoon sky. Inside, I find the art therapy room where young patients create paintings between chemical treatments and difficult procedures. The cooking classes have been amazing, the volunteer coordinator tells me. Someone's been donating incredible ingredients every week, exotic spices that make the kids feel like real chefs, imported chocolates that bring smiles even on bad days. She shows me photos of children laughing while they prepare simple dishes with ingredients that cost more than most families spend on groceries in a month. Christina's gift to them isn't just food, it's dignity and joy in the middle of their hardest battles. Do you know who the donor is? The coordinator asks hopefully. Yes, I whisper, my throat tight with emotion. She's someone who believes in healing through nourishment. That evening, I drive to Green Spring Valley one more time, drawn by memories and the desperate hope that returning to our beginning might show me how to find our ending. The riding club feels abandoned in winter darkness, most horses tucked safely in their stalls while snow whispers against the windows. But one figure moves in the illuminated arena, and my heart stops. Christina guides her chestnut mare through the same elegant patterns I witnessed that first morning months ago. Even from a distance, I can see the sadness in her posture, the mechanical precision that has replaced her former joy. She rides like someone going through motions rather than dancing with her mount. I park and walk to the arena fence, my boots crunching on frozen ground. She notices my approach but doesn't stop riding, continuing her routine with determined focus. When she finally brings the mare to a halt near the fence, her blue eyes are rimmed with exhaustion. Elena. My name sounds like a prayer in her voice. I heard about the donations, I say quietly. The Children's Hospital. The Grief Counseling Center. Her cheeks flush in the arena lighting. I don't know what you're talking about. Christina. I grip the cold metal fence between us. Why? She dismounts gracefully and approaches until only the barrier separates us. Because even if you can't, forgive me, those people shouldn't suffer for our mistakes. Our mistakes? I should have supported your decision about the shop instead of trying to fix what wasn't mine to fix. Her voice breaks slightly. I should have trusted that you knew what you needed better than I did. The admission tears at my heart. You were trying to protect me. I was trying to control the outcome because I was scared of losing you. Tears track down her cheeks. Turns out I lost you anyway. We stand in the falling snow, separated by 3 feet of space and weeks of pride that suddenly feel insurmountable. I want to climb the fence and hold her until all the hurt dissolves, but the weight of everything unsaid keeps me frozen in place. Christina, I begin, but she shakes her head. I should go. The mare gets cold quickly. She turns away, leading her horse toward the barn with shoulders that carry the weight of our failures. I watch until they disappear into the golden warmth of the stable, then drive home through empty streets that mirror the hollow ache in my chest. Some distances can't be crossed with good intentions alone. That night, I light candles in the abandoned shop and close my eyes, desperately seeking connection with Aunt Miriam's spirit. The silence is deafening until suddenly the temperature drops 10 degrees, and I feel her presence surrounding me like a warm embrace. Child, her voice whispers through dimensions, clearer than any spirit communication I've ever received. You're making my same mistake. I'm trying to honor your legacy, I protest to the dusty air. My legacy isn't this building. It's the gift I pass to you. The ability to help others heal from loss. The candle flames flicker as if stirred by an otherworldly wind. I kept this shop as a monument to dead love instead of choosing living love. Don't repeat my tragedy. The vision comes next, overwhelming in its clarity. I see Aunt Miriam as a young woman, vibrant and passionately in love with Catherine. I witnessed their stolen moments together, the way they looked at each other like they'd discovered fire. Then I watched decades of regret unfold as Miriam chose duty over happiness, her spirit withering along with her business. But what about tradition? About carrying on your work? Love is the only tradition worth preserving, Aunt Miriam's spirit whispers as the presence begins fading. Let someone else buy the shop who can give it proper care. Your path lies with the woman whose heart calls to yours across every barrier. The candles extinguish simultaneously, leaving me in darkness that suddenly feels pregnant with possibility instead of despair. Christina's guilt has transformed into something beautiful and heartbreaking. I discover her charitable work extends far beyond what I initially realized. The homeless shelter downtown receives weekly deliveries of gourmet soup made with ingredients that cost more than most restaurants' entire food budgets. Food banks get exotic produce that would typically go to five-star establishments. She comes every Tuesday, the shelter coordinator tells me when I ask about their mysterious benefactor. Never gives her name, just drops off enough food to feed everyone for days. Said someone she cared about taught her that nourishment heals more than just hunger. My throat tightens, recognizing my own words repeated back to me. Even in our separation, Christina carries pieces of our conversations like sacred texts, using what I taught her about connecting with people through deeper service. At the food bank, I find similar stories. The brunette woman who brings those incredible mushrooms? The volunteer manager's eyes light up. She always asks specifically about families with children. Says kids deserve beautiful food even when times are hard. But it's the children's hospital that breaks my heart completely. I visit during one of their cooking classes and find a dozen young patients preparing simple pasta dishes with truffles and imported cheeses that would make grown food critics weep with joy. Miss Christina makes us feel special, 8-year-old Maya tells me, carefully grating Parmesan over her creation. She says cooking with love makes everything taste better, even when you're scared. The nurse supervising explains how Christina personally selects ingredients based on each child's dietary restrictions and cultural background. She spends hours researching what would bring comfort to a Syrian refugee child versus a kid from Baltimore's Italian neighborhood. It's beyond generous. It's artistic compassion. Through these discoveries, I realize Christina has been processing our separation by channeling everything I taught her about food as emotional healing into service for people who need it most. She's not just giving away expensive ingredients. She's distributing pieces of her broken heart to repair other people's suffering. The revelation hits me like spiritual lightning. Christina understood my gifts better than I realized. While I was clinging to physical remnants of my aunt's legacy, she was living the essence of what I taught her about love transcending material boundaries. But understanding comes almost too late. When I finally gather courage to visit her apartment, I find the building superintendent posting a lease termination notice on her door. Miss Bailey? He checks his clipboard. Moved out yesterday, left forwarding address with the postal service but didn't say where she was heading. My heart sinks toward my shoes. Did she say why? Something about needing a fresh start. Seemed real sad about it if you ask me. I drive through Baltimore's winter streets like a woman possessed, checking every place we shared memories. The riding club hasn't seen her since our encounter at the arena. Her favorite coffee shop knows nothing about her plans. Even the restaurants she supplies regularly have only received brief emails about service transitions. Christina has vanished as completely as if she never existed, leaving behind only her anonymous charitable works and the ghost of what we could have been. That evening, I sit in the mystical shop surrounded by everything I thought mattered, and finally understand the difference between preserving the past and honoring it. Aunt Miriam's real legacy isn't these dusty crystals or faded tarot decks. It's the lesson that love requires courage to choose differently than previous generations. I pull out my phone and dial the number I've memorized but never used. Baltimore Business Brokers, a cheerful voice answers. I need to sell a commercial property, I say, my voice steady with newfound certainty, as quickly as possible. The next morning brings a miracle disguised as tragedy. A local metaphysical practitioner calls about purchasing established mystical shops, having heard through spiritual community networks that I might be interested in selling. She offers enough to cover all debts plus a small profit that could fund a fresh start. The location has such beautiful energy, she says during our meeting. I can feel decades of healing work embedded in these walls. My aunt would be pleased, I tell her truthfully, signing papers that transfer 40 years of family history to someone who will cherish it properly. For the first time in months, the spirits whisper approval instead of judgment. Even Aunt Miriam's presence feels lighter, as if releasing the shop has freed her spirit from earthbound obligations. But I still don't know where Christina went, and Baltimore feels hollow without her laugh echoing through my days. The knock at my apartment door comes at sunset 3 days after I sell the shop. I've spent the afternoon packing crystals I kept for myself, preparing to start fresh somewhere new. When I open the door, Christina stands in my hallway holding a ceramic dish that smells like heaven and looks nervous enough to shatter. I brought you dinner, she says quietly, her blue eyes uncertain. Your favorite. The honey cake with lavender cream. My heart hammers against my ribs. How did you know I was still here? Mrs. Henderson at the Grief Center mentioned you'd sold the shop. I hoped you hadn't left Baltimore yet. I step aside to let her enter, noting how she moves carefully around the boxes scattered across my living room. She places the dish on my kitchen counter and turns to face me, her brunette hair catching the golden light streaming through my windows. Christina, I need to tell you something. No. Let me go first. She takes a shaking breath. I heard about your aunt's letters. About Catherine. My eyebrows raise in surprise. How could you possibly know about that? The woman who bought your shop called me. She found more letters hidden in the walls during renovation and thought you should have them. Christina pulls an envelope from her coat. This one was addressed to you. With trembling fingers, I open the final letter Aunt Miriam never had chance to send. Her familiar handwriting swims through my tears as I read her words. Elena, if you were reading this, I'm gone, and you've inherited my mistakes along with my gifts. Don't let fear of judgment keep you from the love that calls to your soul. Choose differently than I did. Choose happiness over duty, partnership over solitude, living love over preserved memory. She wanted you to know, Christina whispers, that some traditions are meant to be broken. I set the letter down carefully, my hands shaking with emotion and possibility. Christina, I've made terrible mistakes. We both have. She steps closer until I can smell her familiar perfume mixed with cooking aromas. But I realized something while I was staying at my cousin's in Philadelphia. What? That being right about the shop's finances doesn't matter if I lost you in the process. I'd rather be wrong together than right apart. You weren't wrong. The admission tastes like freedom. Selling the shop was the right choice. I just needed to reach that conclusion myself instead of having it forced on me. Her smile breaks like sunrise across her face. So what happens now? I have an idea. I move to the kitchen counter where business plans and sketches cover every surface. What if we combined our talents? Your gourmet food expertise with my understanding of healing and connection? Christina examines my rough drawings with growing excitement. A wellness cafe that serves both food and spiritual guidance? Exactly. People could come for breakfast and stay for tarot readings. Couples could share dinner while I help them communicate with deceased relatives. The vision crystallizes as I speak. We could create a space where nourishment happens on every level. Elena, that's brilliant. She traces the sketches with one finger. I know the perfect location. There's a beautiful old Victorian house near the harbor that's been converted to commercial space. Would you want to be partners? In business and in life? Instead of answering immediately, she frames my face with flower-scented hands and kisses me with passion that tastes of forgiveness and new beginnings. When we break apart, her eyes shine with tears and determination. Yes to both, she whispers against my lips. I love you, Elena Jackson. I love your gifts, your stubborn loyalty, your ability to see connections others miss. I want to build something beautiful together. I love you too, I breathe, finally saying words I should have spoken months ago. I love how you nourish people through food, how you turned your grief into service for others, how you never stopped caring even when I pushed you away. We hold each other in my half-packed apartment as snow begins falling outside, sealing our reunion with nature's blessing. Later, we share the honey cake while planning our future, sketching layouts and menu ideas that blend Christina's culinary artistry with my spiritual practice. The Wellness Cafe opens 6 months later in the Victorian house Christina discovered. Mystic Nourishment becomes Baltimore's most unique dining experience, where people come for Christina's incredible food and stay for my intuitive guidance. The combination proves magical, creating a community space where healing happens through both exceptional cuisine and supernatural connection. On our first anniversary, we host a celebration dinner for everyone who helped us build our dream. Mrs. Henderson raises a toast with champagne poured over Christina's lavender honey cake. To love that transcends every boundary, she declares, and the room fills with agreement from clients who've witnessed our partnership transform their own understanding of what's possible. Later, after the last guest leaves and we're cleaning up together, Christina pulls me into her arms in our empty dining room. Moonlight streams through the windows we installed together, illuminating the space where we've learned to blend our individual gifts into something neither could create alone. Any regrets about choosing this path? She asks, her voice soft with contentment. I kiss her thoroughly, tasting the sweetness of shared dreams fulfilled and promises kept. Only that we waited so long to trust each other completely. Snow continues falling outside our windows, covering Baltimore in pristine white that makes everything look newly born. Inside our cafe, surrounded by the lingering aromas of the evening's feast and the warm energy of love, freely chosen over fear, we dance slowly to music only we can hear. The spirits whisper their approval in the candlelit darkness, blessing a love that honors the past while embracing an unlimited future.